Hi, this is Anthony. Welcome back to my show. As I promise in all my videos, I do respond to people's comments. Sometimes it could be a couple years later, sometimes a little bit sooner. This is one that was recently posted and then deleted from Gerhard. I don't know if he's from the Netherlands or from England. It's kind of hard to tell. I mean, from his name, it looks like he might have been from the Netherlands, but he also sounds like he might be from England or the United Kingdom. He says, "You sound like the kind of Yank for whom TV dinners were invented. Quick, efficient, enough nutrients, little effort necessary to prepare and chew down. As for a splash, there's the ketchup bottle. Ever been to Europe? Question mark. So, first of all, I'm not offended, but in the United States, no one calls anybody a Yank. Yank in the United States is a verb that you do to the dog's leash if you're walking your dog and it sees a cat and wants to run off. You yank it back towards you. Okay? Yank is short for Yankee. I know that people in England like to call Americans Yanks. Yankees are descendants of English people who immigrated to New England in the 1600s, and their descendants, no one else in the United States is called a Yankee. But again, it doesn't matter. Ever been to Europe? Yeah, actually, I have. Besides attending a university in the United States, where I got a bachelor's and then a master's later on, I attended what is now a university in Micronesia, as well as spending 11 months in Europe, where I attended an English language program at a university in Szeged, Hungary. And I've talked about this, I think, in other videos. While I was in Hungary in 1992 and 93, a time when a lot of change was happening in Eastern Europe, I was able to travel around during our long vacations from the academic year as well as the following summer in 1993. So I've been to what was still Czechoslovakia, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, France, Switzerland, Italy, Austria, Slovenia, Croatia, where my grandmother was born, and Serbia, when it was still technically part of Yugoslavia, united with Montenegro and the rump Yugoslavia after the rest of the nations of that country had departed, and also Poland. I think I listed all the ones that I had visited at that time. After getting my master's degree in political science, where I looked at the role of the communist nomenclatura on economic reform in Eastern Europe and Russia, I worked for a university in Russia in 1996 for a while, came back to the United States, worked for them here, went back to Russia for 6 months until we lost our federal funding and had to close up the program. On the way back, the first time from Russia, I was also able to visit Eastern Europe again and visit some of the countries that I'd already been to, as well as Romania. So, as far as my background, I have been involved in many different levels of government participation in service in the state of Oregon, and I've attended hundreds, if not probably thousands, of hours of meetings with officials over the past 15 or so years. Plus, just watching lots of C-SPAN and other televised or YouTube videos of national and local politicians and government officials, staff members speaking on different topics. So I'm fairly familiar with how things are run. Some of my comments in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy video that I did revolve around that. So this particular person deleted that first message, although it was saved in an email sent to me. And then they wrote, "I was born in 1957, so I lived through the 1970s. The BBC TV series perfectly reflects the pace of that era, the ways of interacting and speaking and moving. It was slow compared to today's pace. The book was written in 1977. The plot is set in 1972-73, and the BBC series were made in 1979. That's how movies and TV series in Europe were made in those years and how we lived our lives. Only phone, telex, and fax, and bank transactions and goods shipments took several days, up to a week for international. No internet, no high-speed rail, no email, no really fast and frequent international flights. The BBC series of Tinker Tailor Soldier's Spy glued many Brits to their television sets and many Europeans when the series were sold abroad. The Cold War and intelligence personnel actions also had a 70s pace. It was a real thing back then. Anyone who's read the book could appreciate that the BBC producers had kept most of the sublime dialogues verbatim. A bonus when the project is allowed enough time to make all of the subtleties shine. The 2011 movie version was adapted to suit the American movie-going hipsters of the day. Not all people throughout the world, only hipsters of 2011. John le Carré, David Cornwell, was only moderately impressed by director Thomas Alfredson's effort because it simplified and skipped much of the original context. Your comments would lead one to believe that you fit well within the target audience and its specific level of patience and sensibility for deeper essences. Okay, well, you're entitled to your opinion, and I appreciate you taking the time. I understand prior to now, things took longer. You didn't have the technology. But my point is, and the original BBC production, I believe, was 7 hours long. The American version was cut down to 6 hours. My point is there's lots of scenes where you could cut out plenty of unnecessary visualization. And a lot of the dialogue doesn't ring true. The actions don't ring true. Even if it rings true to the book, the way that people act, for instance, when the different heads of sections come in to have a meeting, it doesn't look like government officials from MI6 going in to have a meeting. It looks like the start of a Monty Python skit. We could watch the video of the movie, of the series together, and I could point out all these things. My point is if you watch something and you say, that's not how humans, that's not how a normal person, that's not how a highly educated government intelligence agent would act, then there's probably something wrong there. Now, if we're watching something that takes place in a school where school children do something that doesn't make any sense, or is what an 11-year-old would do and not a 52-year-old man would do, that's another thing. If you went to a mental institution, then people are not going to act quote-unquote normal. But my point is that you could have kept most of the dialogue, most of the scenes, and still whittled it down and made things more realistic. So that's just my thoughts. Thank you for taking the time to write. Even though I think we probably are not going to agree, I still appreciate you taking the time.